Welcome to the No Delusion Zone. I'm David Debato. Folks, I never use obscenities or threats in any of my podcasts, my recordings, or even in my written articles. I don't find that that's the best way to communicate important messages, important concepts to people. At least that's the way I feel. It's just not my style. However, there comes a time when certain people deserve certain words. And we are at such a time, and there are certain people who have forced me to change my usual method of operation and use a little cruder language than I normally would. So please forgive me. Why am I telling you all of this? Well, this is the first episode of the No Delusion Zone that I hope to make a weekly podcast. And the title of this new weekly podcast is Scumbag of the Week. Yes, Scumbag of the Week. Why? Well, as I said, we're living in a very, very important time, an inflection point in both national and world history. Why? Well, there's really only one good word for that, and it's not who you think it is. It's MAGA, led by you-know-who, but nevertheless, MAGA. You know, no one person, as good, as bad, as demented, or powerful, or crazy, or whatever, can make great numbers of people do something unless they want to. You know, the old saying, you can't lead a horse to water. Well, you can't make people become members of a cult and say and do horrible things unless they really want to, unless this was inside of them all along, just waiting for some lunatic to give them permission to let it out. Well, of course, I'm talking about he who shall be named, Donald J. Trump. And Trump is the first scumbag of the week. He holds that honor. Why is he the scumbag of the week this week? And I'm not going to say that he's not going to be the scumbag of the week in other episodes, but this week, the debut episode of this new podcast, the reason he's the scumbag of the week is because of a speech that he just gave. He gives a lot of speeches. He says a lot of vile, horrible things. But recently, what he said was one of the more vile and horrible things that he said recently. And I'm going to quote from the New York Times about what he said. Just a brief quote. Christians, get out and vote. Just this time, he said, at the Believers Summit, an event hosted by the conservative advocacy group Turning Point Action in West Palm Beach, Florida. Quote, you won't have to do it anymore. You know what? 4 more years. It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. What a scumbag. What a horrible, horrible human being. What an anti-democracy fascist. Yes, fascist. He really is. And if you don't think he is one, then you haven't been paying attention for the last 9 years. What Donald Trump just said, and he said it before, but he said it in more clear terms this time. If he's elected in November and becomes president again on January 20th of next year, there won't be another election in America. He will be dictator for life. It's pretty clear. Now he's going to crouch it or couch it in all kinds of crazy terms. His political campaign people are already spewing lies and disinformation about what he meant. Really, he didn't mean dictatorship. Blah blah blah. BS. He made it. He made it very clear, and he meant it. And he said it before. What was the other quote he said? I'll only be a dictator on day one. Nobody's a dictator on day one. They are a dictator on day one and day 2, 3, 4, and for the rest of their lives. What Donald J. Trump just said is that if you vote for him in November and he wins, you won't have to vote anymore. And I think he followed that up with another loathsome statement, "My beautiful Christians." What a lying sack of donkey dust. He's not a Christian. He doesn't even know how to hold a Bible. He's never read a Bible. In fact, there have been recordings of him before and after he was president calling evangelical Christians assholes. Yes. And they don't care, though. They don't care. Evangelicals don't care. The hardcore far-right Christians of all stripes don't care. Any MAGA lunatic doesn't care. As long as he feeds their rage, their lunacy, all of their pet peeves, and tells them what they want to hear, they don't care what he says, what he does. If he is, in fact, a scumbag, if he is, in fact, a fascist, if he's going to burn this country down, take away their rights, take away any semblance of health care that they don't have, reduce Medicare, reduce Social Security, or do away with it altogether. They don't care about any of this. They just like to hear him own the libs and say just really horrible, loathsome things. I'm going to do another podcast in the near future about MAGA and the people who adore Donald Trump, literally think he's a god, that he's a prophet announced by God and or Jesus, who I guess they believe are one and the same. MAGA. Maggots is better what they are. I have a very cold heart of my soul for MAGA. Anyway, scumbag of the week, Donald J. Trump. Well, thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode of Scumbag of the Week in hopefully about a week. And remember, take care, stay safe, and stay sane.